to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
And welcome to Anti-Tyranny News Radio here on UCY.tv. Oh, there we go. Sorry, I was turning the wrong knobs here. Okay. Here we go. Now, we had Trump holding a press conference today. We're going to get into that. And with the whole fake news, alt-right, blah, blah, blah. It's really come to a head now, but what does this spell for the future? We're going to get into this. But when it comes to the intelligence agencies using this bogus story that BuzzFeed and CNN and others picked up on and ran with, it really kind of shines a big spotlight on the intelligence agencies, the ones that a lot of the mainstream media has been critical against Trump for bashing, going, is he really going to ignore the intelligence agencies? But this bogus report ended up in a classified, intelligence agency report, according to many outlets. And, for a long time, we've had these intelligence agencies in a way running rogue. And a big question is going to be, what is Trump going to do with the intelligence agencies? Is he going to scale back what they're doing? Because it's one thing to say, well, I'm going to go clean out this corruption, but it's another thing when you still have intelligence agencies that can basically have rogue power. Now, we're going to get into Ron Paul Liberty Report, and this one's titled, Can Trump Rein in the CIA? And the CIA being one of the big intelligence agencies that, one, not a lot of people trust. Two, there's evidence of a lot of rogue activity, whether it be top down or bottom up. There's a lot of things that many people believe the CIA involves itself in that puts the country and its security at risk. is Trump going to take on, or as this Ron Paul Liberty report, can he rein in the CIA? So we'll go ahead and dive into this, and then we'll kind of get into the other agencies and get into the Russian hacking and the latest press conference that President-elect Donald Trump held today. So let's go ahead and cue this Ron Paul Liberty report up. And again, it becomes one of those things that just saying you're going to clean out corruption too would not be what you would want to hear, because we also have to look at scaling back the power of a lot of these intelligence agencies when it comes to domestic surveillance.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With me today is Daniel McAdams. And Daniel, good to see you.
Good morning, Dr. Paul.
Oh, very good. Today, we'd like to talk a little bit about Donald Trump. I think he's the president-elect, and he's talking about the CIA. Well, you know, I think most people know about where I stand on Donald Trump. When he's right, I try to brag about it. When he's wrong, I try to point out it's not going the wrong way. But I don't think there's any doubt about my criticism of the CIA, because I don't think too much of them, because they've gotten us into so much trouble. The evidence is so overwhelming that they've been involved in many assassinations, not only, the association and the confirmation by many now of the CIA being involved in the Kennedy assassination, maybe both Kennedys, for all we know. And then the CIA, of course, is so secretive. Even as a member of Congress, I couldn't find out, what was really going on. And sometimes they don't even know what's going on. So Trump comes along and says something good. He says, we need to look into it. We need to shrink it. We need to know what they're doing. And of course, he was happy that, Assange was, trying to straighten out some of these things, and what the CIA and the FBI would say about, it's all the Russians' fault, it's all the Russians' fault. So that's an interesting alliance too. But the big issue here is reform and change in the CIA, and it's meeting a great resistance no matter how many failures it's had, whether it's the association with the Kennedy and even Martin Luther King's assassination. But I was really fascinated the other day. It was a liberal TV station was rehashing this thing about the failure of the CIA on leading up to the war in Iraq. Of course, they failed. You don't know. And Trump has accused the CIA as being political. Yeah, maybe. And so they might have been very political. At the time, they had to feed the information in there to support the war. And Trump makes the point. They didn't even know about it. Now, the liberals were talking about it, and they didn't deny it. They didn't argue and say, yeah, that's true. They've messed up, but we've cleaned up our act, and you can trust us now. And that was defending the CIA. But we do have this ongoing, and hopefully some good will come of it, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
Who would have thought that the left would now be saying, Trump's a terrible guy because he doesn't even believe the CIA.
Yeah, that's right. The old left was a little bit better than the new left.
Exactly. But the idea, and I think it's pretty well known that there have been aspects or parts of the CIA that have been in open warfare against Trump through the campaign. Right. So many anonymous leaks from intelligence officials, one way or the other. So it's not knowing how Trump seems to operate. I don't think it's a surprise that he's going to look to the intelligence community for reform. And he's also surrounded himself very closely with military types, military officers. And there's an ongoing tension between Pentagon intelligence gathering and analysis and what the CIA does. We saw that in Syria, where the CIA troops were fighting the Pentagon troops on the ground. So I think there's nothing unusual. I think we can see what side he's taking on it, but that's only part of the story.
Right. And hopefully he can get to the bottom of this. There are 17 different agencies, and they're supposed to, be coordinating, but they're bureaucratic and they're political and they're inept and they have all these problems, and the deep state is involved. And what are their political beliefs? Those sometimes who are working with the deep state and taking their orders, they could be very pro-war. Matter of fact, they probably are very pro-war because they always seem to be involved. And they're very much pro-involvement in other elections. That's what really gets to me, that, oh my goodness, I hope we have a quote, I think McCain talks about getting involved in election, but here we have, throwing up their hands, isn't this horrible, about the Russians might have gotten involved, which I don't believe. I don't think they have the evidence. But if we looked at ourselves and involvement, the total number of people involved, we could find out that we don't do a very good job. And I'm just hoping that something good will come in this investigation. But also look at Trump as a businessman and somebody who knows how to get hold of things and get control. And since I don't even like the principle of the CIA, I don't think they give us information. They hide information from us, and they mislead us. So that's why I don't have high hopes for this. So we'll have to see.
And actually, if we have the third clip we can put up, it's the McCain quote. And McCain is now, as we speak, I think, holding hearings in the Senate on Russia's hacking our elections. And here's what he said in his opening statement: "Every American should be alarmed by Russia's attacks on our nation. There is no national security interest more vital to the United States of America than the ability to hold free and fair elections without foreign interference."
What a joke that is. But every American should be alarmed. He made an assumption, guilty as charged, no question about it. I think, this adamant decision that they know exactly what it is. And I think the greatest threat is to the American people. The line that went on to get us in the Iraq War, who did it hurt? It didn't help the Iraqi people. It was supposedly helping. It didn't help the American people. It didn't help our soldiers that died. I mean, it was just a calamity. So this whole thing that we have to worry about this, he needs to worry about the American people. But they're claiming, of course, that if we didn't have the CIA, we wouldn't know what's going on in the world, and we wouldn't know which governments to support. And at the same time, we're the ones that's doing the intervening. What is it, since World War II, there's even just up to the turn of the century, there were 81 times we knew, people know, we were involved in elections. We were involved in 50 assassinations. And you hear, we're very disturbed. The American people should wake up. I think we should wake up. Yes, if they did and got involved. But right now there's been, and we talked about this, I think, yesterday, some of the experts are saying there's no way that this could be, orchestrated by the Russian government. So, but nevertheless, inconsistencies and inconsistency with the way they present the case from the far left. I think a lot of this stuff, when it comes to the election and what the CIA is doing, is just, the left are just a bunch of crybabies right now. Do you think they're on principle opposed to any of this? No, as long as that, and I think we have another quote that may show what they're really thinking.
Yeah. The thing about the McCain hearing today, he brought in the top leaders of the CIA, the Office of National Intelligence. It is an example of exactly how these things are politicized. He has a foregone conclusion before he held this hearing, which is that the Russians attacked. He even said attack the U.S. And so he trots out the CIA, he trots out the intelligence community to back up a conclusion that he had already made. That's called politicization, and using it in a politicized way. And the other part that's fun is he talks about how dare they interfere? Well, he's the one who went to Ukraine and actually participated in the overthrow of an elected government. He did the same thing. He went into Syria and met with a bunch of terrorists because he wanted to overthrow that government. So talk about the pot calling the kettle black.
Oh, yeah. What a pity, So they'll have these hearings, and Trump has a goal. Somebody else had a goal similar to this after World War II, and that was Truman, and that's why he created the CIA to sort all this out. But, it's more complex than it seems to be. I think Trump will have problems, achieving this just because there's so many obstacles, and he won't know who really represents the CIA unless he is well attuned to the deep state, because the real orders and assassinations, that's not out in the open. I'm sure there's no CIA record of when they said, well, we're going to take this guy out. Every once in a while they did. I mean, we did know what exactly their plans were to get Saddam Hussein. That was just stupid policy, thinking that they were going to remake the Middle East. They remade the Middle East in a very destructive manner, doing something we shouldn't have been involved in. But the CIA is always participating in these kind of things.
And there is a good quote, actually, from Chuck Schumer. It was the first clip that we had. And I think Schumer is plugged in pretty well to the deep state. And here's what he said about Trump and the CIA. Let me tell you, you take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. That is very chilling if you think that. That's a threat against Donald Trump for trying to even do any reform.
Yeah, we always complain about these guys telling lies, but this is not a lie. I think he's speaking the truth there, that they better watch out. And I think Trump knows about it. That's why he has private security. And why should they trust the CIA? But that's un-American. Just because the evidence says that, that you can't trust them, and maybe the philosophy is that they shouldn't even exist, and they haven't produced anything good. They haven't warned us about anything. They didn't do a very good job. They had over $40 billion in intelligence gathering before 9/11, and on the investigations, it turned out they had a lot of evidence floating around. They didn't do anything about it. Is it total ineptness? Or I think there's a lot of ineptness because they're bureaucratic. There's so many different agencies, and the CIA's, not really working with the FBI. So Trump has a good goal in his mind. The big question is, what's he going to accomplish? And is he really... I doubt very much if he has our position that some of this activity shouldn't even exist. So I think if he got control of it, he would use it the way he wants to use it. And he's not bashful about using power. And he's not bashful about saying that foreign activity should be very, very secretive. And I don't consider him a libertarian on civil liberties. No. So, and just look at his appointments. I mean, the Attorney General and also Pompeo's appointments, CIA. These guys don't have any qualifications for protecting the American people. They're protecting privacy for the executive branch and the deep state. The biggest thing I think that I have in my mind to figure out is the relationship of the deep state to Trump. Yeah. Most people on our side, libertarians and conservatives say, well, it's Trump against the deep state, Trump against the deep state. I told you the other day, I said, I started off with saying elections are just, ceremonies to entertain the people. And when I saw first that Trump said, we're not going to, why prosecute poor old Hillary? She's had enough problems. Just leave her alone. We don't want to put her in prison. And then the next thing is Hillary and Bill. Sure, we're going to join in. I mean, that was a lot of fun we had there, but now we're best of buddies. And so that makes you wonder. I don't believe that is forgiveness and capitulation as much as they're too often on the same page. But that's so much conspiracy, nobody's going to believe that stuff.
Well, we were talking beforehand, and this is the same with foreign policy. It's, Trump may want to reorganize the intelligence community. He may want to even shrink it, they say. They say he may even get rid of the Office of Director of National Intelligence, which was formed on top of the other agencies that didn't work together.
To bring them together.
But, it is the policy, not the structure, that's important. And you talked about Pompeo. This is a guy who is in favor of regime change, which Trump on December 1st explicitly opposed. He says it's not going to be our business anymore. But here's Pompeo on Iran. Called on Congress to, quote, change Iranian behavior and ultimately the regime. Here's Pompeo on Syria. We want regime change in Syria. It's in the U.S. national interest to act militarily against Syria. So if he really means reform,
and put that in context of history, you know, it sounds like Eisenhower, which nobody really realizes, but Eisenhower was very engaged. If they read the book, The Brothers, you know, by Kinzer, they find out the Dulles brothers, Secretary of State, and the CIA leader there, Allen Dulles, but this was all part of it. And just look how much we've suffered all these years. And they're still conspiring to overthrow a government in Iran. So they don't seem to ever learn. You know, sorting it out on whether they're just plain stupid or they have an ulterior motives and just are totally inept. But they don't even seem to accomplish what they think they're supposed to be doing. Oh, yeah, we're remaking the Middle East. What are they talking about? Yeah, they destroyed how many countries in the Middle East? And I understand that war in Afghanistan isn't about to close down shop. I think that might even continue after Obama leaves office.
The good war.
Yeah, that's a good war. That's why they keep it going. It's good for you know whom, you know, it's for the military-industrial complex.
But, you know, it's as you say, it's not about reorganizing the deck chairs. That's what they did already with the Department of Homeland Security and all this stuff. But it's about the policies, and that's at the center of it all.
I think that is the key to it. You know, whether it's the CIA operations or our military operation, it's the policy that our country follows in foreign affairs. You know, we have not taken the advice of the founders and said, stay out of the entangling alliances, stay out of Europe in particular. Don't get involved in internal affairs of other nations. And that's all we ever do. And they figure, well, we're doing it in protecting, it's always, well, we send kids over there to fight and die for our freedoms and our Constitution in unconstitutional wars. So they argue the case that we have to do this for national security interest. I mean, just think of all this activity. Why, the American people ever ask, why do we have to decide exactly who runs Ukraine? Yeah. You know, and yet they get bombarded with the propaganda that a lot of people now, especially if they lean Democrat, oh, the Russians are coming. The Russians are coming. It's every bit as bad as the Cold War, and therefore they're ready to. And we're putting more weaponries in Eastern Europe. They didn't talk about that much in the last couple of weeks because they talk about the election and distracted from our military buildup. Then they wonder why the Russians react to this. You know, it doesn't make much sense.
And I think thousands of special forces troops are in Lithuania, literally on the border with Russia. Can you imagine how they would react here in the U.S.? If thousands of Russians were on the border in Mexico? I
was wondering also that, you know, in international waters in the Gulf of Mexico, anybody can come in there. But do you think if China put their Navy in the Gulf of Mexico, we wouldn't have something to say about it? Yeah, we're dictating everything that's going on in the South China Sea. But, you know, a lot of people... you know, I think our viewers are pretty much attuned, and at least they're open-minded and skeptical and like to hear, you know, a take on the news and what's happening in a little different fashion than what they get on the TV and what they get spoon-fed, and that's good. But if there are some skeptics viewing the program, you know, I would suggest that there's a lot of information out there. And you and I even mentioned already the one book that we thought was very important was The Brothers, and that was written by Kinzer. Mm-hmm. And it talks about how the two Dulleses got involved way back during the Eisenhower era, right after World War II, and involved with Korea and all these things. But there are some other ones. There was one by Russ Baker that I found fascinating, and that was the family of secrets. Mm-hmm. This goes all the way back and talks about even Prescott Bush and George Bush Sr. and George W. Bush, and shows all the intrigues going on. But the real person they talked about, as well as in the book written by David Talbot, was Devil's Chessboard. Mm-hmm. And the real person, the individual they hone in on is Allen Dulles. You know, the first leader, you know, CIA director. And boy, if somebody can read that and just blow it off and say, this is a bunch of nutty stuff, they can do something easier. But the documentation, and matter of fact, the people have come around to this. They give these statistics out about, trusting the Warren Commission on Kennedy.
Yeah.
I remember when that report came out and they were standing up there and talking about it, and people said, well, maybe this. But now we had every member of Congress vote to open up, the ability of the people who lost loved ones on 9/11, that they can sue Saudi government. So there were foreign governments involved. Yeah. And of course, our internationalists here, the neocons, got hysterical over the whole thing. So the information is out there, and I would just encourage people to go look for it and then make up their own minds about it.
Well, certainly hope that he does reorganize and it takes into account the policy being primary, and maybe takes a look at the U.S. covert actions.
Yeah. I think that is very important to at least look at it and get information. The more information, the better. It helps the American people decide what we should do. And I can draw an analogy to the Federal Reserve. I've worked for a good many years on auditing the Fed. And sometimes people will write in, you're not doing this right. You got to abolish the Fed. Of course, we have to abolish the Fed. But I tell you what. One major step of auditing Fed, because we need to reform and look at it and see who they're bailing out. This is very, very important. Same way on the CIA. I think, what Trump is doing is good. I think it's fine and dandy, since we're very sympathetic to people like Assange and Ed Snowden for telling us the truth. That's what we want. It is controversial. They put their lives on the line. They get charged with all kinds of things and threat. They lose their citizenship and all these kind of things that go on because they tell us the truth. And that, to me, is a tragedy. So we're going to continue to do our very best to look at these issues, and we're hoping for the best that when Trump gets serious about this, as soon as he's sworn in, that a lot of good will come of it. And I'm keeping my fingers crossed, because right now I think it's a mess. I think the CIA and the secrecy of our government has caused so much trouble, and we ought to have it much more open, and we have to have a much greater concern about not protecting national interests and doing all this stuff. We have to protect the domestic interest, which is personal liberty and privacy of the American citizen, defend the Fourth Amendment. That's what we really need today. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today, and please come back soon.
Ron Paul Liberty Report, RonPaulLibertyReport.com, and Ron Paul Liberty Report on YouTube. Check them out. Subscribe. And just point out he was definitely, both of them were spot on when they were talking about McCain, calling the kettle black. Yeah. Which I have an article here. Daily Mail. Trump nemesis John McCain admits he gave FBI Trump smeared document. So we'll go ahead and dive into this. Sworn Donald Trump enemy John McCain admitted Wednesday that he passed the dossier of claims of a Russian blackmail plot against the president-elect, calling it what any citizen should do. McCain, a long-standing anti-Trump Republican who had disassociated himself from the candidate's campaign weeks before the election, cast himself as an innocent and concerned member of the public as he justified his move. He claimed he had no idea whether it was accurate or not, but that he believed the FBI should have it because it was sensitive. I did what any citizen should do. I received sensitive information and handed it to the FBI, he told CNN, the network which broke the story that the document existed. It was then published in full by BuzzFeed. Quote, what any citizen should do, the Arizona Senator 80 claimed he was simply acting as a concerned member of the public when he had his face-to-face meeting with the FBI director. That's why I gave it to the FBI. I don't know if it is credible or not, but the information I thought deserved to be delivered to the FBI, the appropriate agency of government. He added, it doesn't trouble me because I don't know if it is accurate or not. I have no way of corroborating that. The individual gave me the information. I looked at it. After receiving that information, I took it to the FBI. He added that he was now aware from media reports that the FBI was apparently already in possession of the information. The Arizona senator had issued a public statement amid mounting questions of his exact role in the affair and how a document riddled with errors and unverifiable claims came to be published. Late last year, I received sensitive information that has since been made public, he said. Upon examination of the contents and unable to make a judgment about their accuracy, I delivered the information to the director of the FBI. That has been the extent of my contact with the FBI or any other government agency regarding this issue. But the 2008 Republican loser who disowned his party's candidate weeks before the election may have been far more intimately involved than that. The dossier claims Russian authorities filmed Trump in a Moscow hotel room with two prostitutes who defiled a bed which had previously been used by President Barack Obama. Trump branded the leaked dossier as fake news and a total political witch hunt. The chain of how the document reached the FBI is not officially known. However, Carl Bernstein, the Watergate reporter who contributed to the first story about its existence published by CNN on Tuesday afternoon, suggested that McCain was handed it by a former British ambassador to Moscow. Bernstein told CNN it came from a former British M16 agent who was hired from a political opposition research firm in Washington who was doing work about Donald Trump for both Republican and Democratic candidates opposed to Trump. Basically, someone hired to dig up dirt. Now, that was from Daily Mail. Let me try to get this other one up here. Okay. And this out of Zero Hedge, 4chan claims to have fabricated anti-Trump report as a hoax. In a story that is getting more surreal by the minute, a post on 4chan now claims that the infamous golden shower scene in the unverified 35-page dossier allegedly compiled by a British intelligence officer was a hoax and fabricated by a member of the chat board as fan fiction, then sent to Rick Wilson, who proceeded to send it to the CIA, which then put it in their official classified intelligence report on the election. Here is 4chan's explanation of how the story came to light. Mailed fan fiction to anti-Trump pundit Rick Wilson about Trump making people pee on a bed Obama slept in. He thought it was real and gave it to the CIA. The CIA of the United States of America put this in their official classified intelligence report on Russian involvement in the election. Donald Trump and Obama have both read this fan fiction. CIA has concluded that the Russian plans to blackmail Trump with the story we made up. Just let that sink in, what we have become. Doesn't realize its own power level and messes up big time. According to at 4chan's best on Twitter. A little screenshot if you want to go check it out on Zero Hedge or on that Twitter page at 4chan's best. 4chan trolled Rick Wilson with the Trump peeing story back in November 2016. Media or CIA added Russian spies themselves. This is not a drill. And that was from at Mr. Bones _ returns. And a summary posted on Pastebin on January 10th, BuzzFeed posted a story under the byline of Ken Bensinger, Mark Schoss, and Miriam Elder titled, "These reports allege Trump has deep ties to Russia." And post a link to a document alleging, among other things, that Russia has been cultivating Trump for 5+ years, that Trump has been in constant contact with the Kremlin for information on his opponents, and perhaps most inflammatory, that there are many recorded instances of blackmail of Trump in sexual misconduct. A prominent claim is that Trump rented the presidential suite of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Moscow, where he knew that the Obamas had slept in. He then hired a number of prostitutes to perform a golden shower on the bed in the room. Noted Never Trump voice Rick Wilson later commented on Twitter stating that the report gave a new meaning to WikiLeaks and that the report was the reason everybody was fighting so hard against the election of Trump. The remarkable thing, it's all fake, and not only fake, it's a prank perpetrated by 4chan on Rick Wilson himself. A post on 4chan on October 26 stated, MFW managed to convince CTR and certain journalists on Twitter there will be an October surprise on Trump this Friday, along with a picture of a smug face with a hash name. On November 1st, a person without a picture but is amused to be the same person posted, so they took what I told Rick Wilson and added a Russian spy angle to it. They still believe it, guys. They're truly effing desperate. There is no remaining Trump scandal that's credible. On January 10th, moments after the story broke and began to gain traction on social media, a person with the same smug grin face and the same hash title for the picture stated, I didn't think they'd take it so far. So the story has taken on something of a life of its own. Going through Rick Wilson's Twitter, you can find many different stories from the time that he had shown the story to a wide number of anti-Trump news sources trying to find a news organization that would actually publish the story. During that time period, he referred to it often as the thing and often playing coy with followers on the content with the story with anybody who has not also a never Trumper. Unconfirmed sources has people as high as John McCain giving the story to FBI Director James Comey to attempt to verify the story. Given that Rick Wilson runs in establishment circles, it is not an impossible scenario that long-serving senators are falling for what amounts to a 4chan troll Trump supporter creating an ironic October surprise out of whole cloth to punk a GOP pundit who derogatorily referred to them as single men who masturbate to anime. You can read the rest of that at Zero Hedge. Now, you know, when we see how easy they were able to manipulate these people, and the thing is it really kind of was a shot at mainstream media and mainstream journalism, which, you know, me as not a Trump supporter, but definitely not a Hillary supporter at all, was just based on what came out of his mouth. It really wasn't based on anything else. It wasn't a slant view. It was things that a lot of his supporters were for that I'm not. The building the wall is not my top priority. When he talks about going after people that, you know, journalists that do question him. Now, I'm not saying that people that are putting out fake news, not trying to verify anything, and putting it out as fact. It's not even like they put it out as, you know, this is what has been passed to us. We can't verify it. We don't, you know if it's true. They try to contact Trump and verify, or, you know, it's one of those things that at least don't put it out there as fact. If it's something that is extremely hard to verify, but you're getting reports of it, which all this is coming from a 4chan. So literally someone trolled Rick Wilson with this information. That was fake. And he bit it. You know, I've had the same thing happen to me, but I didn't bite. I've had a lot of fake news sent to me. And I'm going, you know, I'm looking at it and I'm like, I don't even really have to try to verify it. It seems way too easy and too made up. And with a story like that, I would never run that story unless I could verify it, or other trusted sources that I know do verify information. I know because, you know, people try to sue some of these and they prove that, you know, they had the information right. You can't, that's the thing, a lot of people, and I've seen it before, try to sue because, well, my name's been ruined. Oh, yeah, what did she say you did, or he say you did? They said this. Well, did you do it? Well, yeah, but I didn't want it public. Yeah, but you can't sue because information got out about something you did that you didn't want public, but someone found out about it. They weren't lying about you. And when you know others that, you know, have been threatened to be sued, and they're like, well, I've verified a lot of this information, and anything I haven't verified, I've stated was not, you know, fact, was a theory, but all these other facts along with the, you know, theory kind of line up. And that's what I put out there. There's people that have been sued and lost, or, you know, the people getting sued won because, well, they did fabricate the story. I have a short clip here from We Are Change about this whole fake story that they bid on. Here. Sorry.
Okay, so this is the most epic troll that I have seen pulled off on the internet ever. And of course, yeah, we're going to be talking about Donald Trump getting peed on. Yes, Donald Trump getting peed on, which everyone is talking about all over the internet. But most importantly, in this video, we're going to tell you what happened, how it happened, and most importantly, why this story got out there into the mainstream. Now, it's important to give you a little bit of prelude on why this happened. Yesterday, mainstream media companies ran with the story on how intelligence chiefs presented Donald Trump with claims of Russians' efforts to compromise him. CNN ran with this story with their unknown sources, again, not independently verified, unknown human beings that can't be held accountable or sourced to these quotes and this information. They ran with the story saying that the intelligence agencies are telling Trump that the Russians are trying to compromise him. But now BuzzFeed today ran a story, quote, saying that these reports allege Trump has deep ties to Russia. And they talk about a dossier compiled by a person who claims to be a former British intelligence official that they got. And in their own article, in the middle, of course, they state how this document that they got was not confirmed. It included clear errors, and the report even misspelled the name of one company. And the document presented evidence of how Donald Trump gets peed on. It took 3 BuzzFeed reporters, Ken Bensinger, Mark Schluth, Miriam Elder, to write this story. Weeks of research about a well-known fake document that was sent to them from an anonymous source claiming to be British intelligence. And the sad part is, in today's clickbait society, the story ran. The Daily Beast said, quote, report, Russia has Trump golden showers blackmail. It was trending all over Twitter. Donald Trump's lawyer had to come out and say he wasn't in Prague like the document that BuzzFeed published said he was. And of course, 4chan is claiming victory over this. There was a 4chan post on November 1st talking about this evidence, this information, and it was presented to Rick Wilson, a GOP Republican strategist, who then supposedly went to the CIA with this information, which confirms the story because BuzzFeed's editor said, quote, that in this case, the document, which they published, was in wide circulations at the highest levels of American government and media. It seems to lie behind the set of vague allegations from the Senate Majority Leader, the ones that we talked about on CNN in the beginning of this article. That's what he mentions here, saying that this was credible because other mainstream media sources were running on their anonymous sources. But he also says, we have been chasing specific claims in this document for weeks, and we will continue to. What are you doing with your lives? I mean, seriously, these reporters, like, you must be contemplating like your existence in this world after all this. And many people are asking, why did BuzzFeed do this? Why did BuzzFeed ruin their reputation? Why did BuzzFeed do this? Well, obviously because BuzzFeed doesn't give a damn. All they want is clicks. All they want is attention, and they got it. That's why they were able to get something trending on Twitter. That's why all of us are talking about it, me and you. And what's incentivized by this is having people on their website. So people click on their advertisements and they get more money. And they also want more attention. This is the new kind of Paris Hilton, Kim Kardashian style of journalism that we're seeing in 2017. The Washington Post does it too with their anonymous sources saying all their crazy claims. And again, there's been proven. They've been trolled willingly in order for the freaking attention. There's no way of justifying this. I mean, the BuzzFeed editor who's behind this said, he released this because this is how we see the job of reporters in 2017. This is why Americans' trust in the mainstream media is at an all-time low. And I don't understand this, but there's also another important element here that I wanted to share with you guys because let me explain this as best as I can. So BuzzFeed gets trolled, but now there's people trolling people who are calling out BuzzFeed. So there's a troll of a troll, and people are posting fake excerpts from this document by this former intelligence that are fake. This one takes the cake. This one has been going around saying that this was in the BuzzFeed document by this British official, which no, it wasn't. But this one takes the cake, and it says, quote, in 2009, Trump went to the bathroom in the Moscow hotel. Once in the bathroom, he yelled out, quote, "I hate black people." Then proceeded to relieve himself in the toilet. After he finished, he reportedly said, "I take the biggest dumps. Nobody takes bigger dumps than me, believe me." And followed with, "You know what I refer to my poop as? An Obama, because he's shit, he sucks, and he wasn't born in Kenya." And I've seen other reporters who are calling out BuzzFeed use this picture, use this quote as a way to go against the trolling, getting trolled themselves. People, please, do your damn research and homework. This is, I don't understand what's happening here. If you agree that we're in a day and an age where Paris Hilton, Kim Kardashian style journalism is supposedly successful, I guess for their business, and I guess momentarily it is. But I wanted to ask you guys a question. Do you think these utterly reputation destroying acts by these media organizations will finally come to retribution? Will they finally have no viewership? Let me know in the comment section below if you think their kind of ploy to get buzz will work or will backfire in their face. Let me know, because it's really curious seeing this whole thing unfold. And everybody being just epically trolled. I want to thank everyone for watching, subscribing, clicking that bell button, and supporting us on patreon.com/wearechange, keeping us beholden and sustainable because of you financing us and making sure that we don't become trash like BuzzFeed so we can continue our operations running independently. Love you guys. Thank you so much again for watching.
We Are Change, wearechange.org. We Are Change on YouTube. Check them out. Subscribe. Now, sorry, let's go ahead and get this back up here. Okay. Now I have one from The Intercept. The deep state goes to war with President-elect using unverified claims as Democrats cheer. It says here in January 1961, Dwight Eisenhower delivered his farewell address after serving 2 terms as U.S. president. The 5-star general chose to warn Americans of this specific threat to democracy. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. That warning was issued prior to the decade-long escalation of the Vietnam War, 3 more decades of Cold War mania, and the post-9/11 era, all of which radically expanded that unelected faction's power even further. This is the faction that is now engaged in open warfare against the duly elected and already widely disliked President-elect Donald Trump. They are using classic Cold War dirty tactics and the defining ingredients of what has until recently been denounced as fake news. Their most valuable instrument is the U.S. media, much of which reflexively reverses, serves, believes, and sides with hidden intelligence officials and Democrats, still reeling from their unexpected and traumatic election loss, as well as a systematic collapse of their party, seemingly divorced further and further from reason with each passing day, are willing, eager to embrace any claim, cheer any tactic, align with any villain, regardless of how unsupported, tawdry, and damaging those behaviors might be. The serious dangers posed by Trump presidency are numerous and manifest. There are a wide array of legitimate and effective tactics for combating those threats, from bipartisan congressional coalitions and constitutional legal challenges to citizen uprisings and sustain an aggressive civil disobedience. All of those strategies have periodically proven themselves effective in times of political crisis or authoritarian overreach. But cheering for the CIA and its shadowy allies to unilaterally subvert the U.S. election and impose its own policy dictates on the elected president is both warped and self-destructive, empowering the very entities that have produced the most shameful atrocities and systematic deceit over the last 6 decades. Is desperation of the worst kind, demanding that evidence-free, anonymous assertions be instantly venerated as truth, despite mandating from the very precincts designed to propagandize and lie. Excuse me. Is an assault on journalism, democracy, and basic human rationality, and casually branding domestic adversaries who refuse to go along as traitors and disloyal foreign operatives is morally bankrupt and certain to backfire on those doing it. And you can read the rest of that at the Intercept, and it's actually a well put together article. But basically, Greenwald gets into, how the deep state is trying to, something that, Ron Paul warned about, is really in there trying to basically do what they've done in other countries and disrupt the election process here in America. And people that know me know I really think it's already been way corrupted. But I think this was one of those things where they thought they had it handled and underestimated Trump. Now, I want to get to Donald Trump calling out CNN. Let me go ahead and pull it up here. I know I have it. Sorry, guys. I'm getting it. Just trying to make sure I have one that's not super long and then isn't cut too short. Okay, I got it here. Just queuing it up. Give me a second. Okay. Now, Trump called out, CNN called out BuzzFeed about this, and at the same time refused to give CNN question, and CNN, I believe it was Acosta, was not too happy.
I think it was disgraceful that the intelligence agencies allowed any information that turned out to be so false and fake out. I think it's a disgrace. And I say that, and that's something that Nazi Germany would have done and did do. I think it's a disgrace. That information that was false and fake and never happened got released to the public. As far as BuzzFeed, which is a failing pile of garbage, writing it, I think they're going to suffer the consequences. They already are. And as far as CNN going out of their way to build it up, and by the way, we just found out I was coming down. Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen is a very talented lawyer. He's a good lawyer in my firm. It was just reported that it wasn't this Michael Cohen they were talking about. So all night long, it's Michael Cohen. I said, I want to see your passport. He brings his passport to my office. I say, hey, wait a minute. He didn't leave the country. He wasn't out of the country. They had Michael Cohen of the Trump Organization was in Prague. It turned out to be a different Michael Cohen. It's a disgrace what took place. It's a disgrace. And I think they ought to apologize to start with Michael Cohen. Go ahead. Go ahead. No, not you. Not you. Your organization's terrible. Your organization.
Now let me try to find a better one, because this one is not allowing you to hear Dave Costa. I had it pulled up on my other machine, so yeah, it was Jim Acosta. Let me see if I can find the user that. Of course, everything wants to crash on me. I got one update one time, I think, trying to get me to upgrade. Go to Windows 10. I don't. And it crashed again. Okay. I think I got it here. Here we go.
Which is a failing pile of garbage, writing it. I think they're going to suffer the consequences. They already are. And as far as CNN going out of their way to build it up. And by the way, we just found out I was coming down. Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen is a very talented lawyer. He's a good lawyer in my firm. It was just reported that it wasn't this Michael Cohen they were talking about. So all night long, it's Michael Cohen. I said, I want to see your passport. He brings his passport to my office. I say, hey, wait a minute. He didn't leave the country. He wasn't out of the country. They had Michael Cohen of the Trump Organization was in Prague. It turned out to be a different Michael Cohen. It's a disgrace what took place. It's a disgrace. And I think they ought to apologize to start with Michael Cohen.
Since you're attacking us, can you give us a question? Mr. President-elect.
Go ahead.
Mr. President-elect, since you are attacking our news organization, can you give us a chance?
Your organization
You are attacking our news organization.
Your organization.
Can you give us a chance to ask a question, sir?
Go ahead.
Sir, can you state, Mr. President-elect,
go ahead.
Can you state
She's
categorically,
asking a question.
Mr.
Don't be rude.
President-elect, can you give us a question?
Don't be rude.
You're attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude.
Can you give us a question?
I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
Sir,
go ahead.
Can you state categorically that nobody... No, Mr. President-elect, that's not appropriate.
Do you think President Obama went too far with the sanctions he put on Russia after the hacking? Do you think they're...
So that was the interaction Acosta from CNN and Donald Trump had. When you look at both ways, CNN, they're mainstream media, but he's also taking questions from other mainstream media that didn't run with the story because, well, they didn't know really the story. They didn't have the sources, and they probably believed, hey, you know, if CNN's run it, they got some type of source, but we can't run it because they haven't, you know, we haven't had a reach from that source. But now, you know, CNN wants to try to distance themselves from it. This out of Yahoo. CNN says its reports on Trump intel documents different from BuzzFeed's. Oh, ours are different. CNN, this out of Reuters actually. CNN, the news division of Time Warner Inc., said on Wednesday its decision to publish carefully sourced reporting on unverified intelligence documents concerning President-elect Donald Trump is vastly different than BuzzFeed's decision to publish unsubstantiated memos. CNN's statement came after Trump called the news outlet fake news and refused to take a CNN reporter's question at his first formal news conference since his November 8th electoral win. BuzzFeed on Tuesday published a story about a dossier of documents it said were unverified and potentially unverifiable allegations of contact between Trump aides and Russian operatives. Included in the documents were claims that Russian intelligence had compromising information about Trump. BuzzFeed CEO Jonah Peretti, in a memo to employees on Wednesday, defended the decision to publish the dossier, referring to it as a newsworthy document. So after all that, he still thinks it was a newsworthy document. That article right there was out of yahoo.com. But it's funny because all this fake news talk, and how they were trying to, as they said, go after the alt-right, but that in the left's viewpoint is also going after basically most alternative media, conservative, independent outlets, because, well, mainstream media is losing out to all the other options that we have now through the internet. So, of course, the mainstream and, you know, left-leaning, for the most part, mainstream media wouldn't mind putting big old fat fake news labels on people. What Trump has done here is kind of throw that whole label that they decided to start running with and threw it back in their face. CNN, you are fake news. BuzzFeed, you are fake news. That's what he did. So he's throwing it back. He threw a little, a little bone to the other outlets that decided not to run it in that press conference. And I still think, though, with the mainstream media, what will probably end up happening with the mainstream media is, he's basically going, you're going to get in line with my administration, or I will use the same thing that you're calling for against you. That becomes a threat still to independent media. That wording. And, we said it before, you give government that power, your guy's not going to be in power the whole time. Eventually, it's going to swing the other way. I think it's up to the people to research, look at both sides, all sides. There's not usually just two sides to an issue. It's usually a spider web, and you have to do your own research if you really want to know what's going on. Otherwise, if you don't know what's going on, you shouldn't just back things because, well, that's my guy up there. My friends know I got their back when I, think they're right. But I'm not just going to, have one go, come run up. Yep, you're going to help me, defend myself against this guy. What did you do? I'm not just going to jump in and defend you for, I'll, not try to let you get hurt, but I'm not going to, get myself hurt too because you might have, decided to get drunk and hit this guy and now he's mad. But we have to do our own research. And that's why backing wars, and how can people legitimately back a war? Because most of the people out there don't know what's going on. They've seen a report on CNN. You can't just go off of that. You probably shouldn't go off of that. Maybe that's a bias, but yeah, you probably shouldn't go off of just what CNN put out. But we have a lot of issues. There's reports out, Zuckerberg and Facebook are going to have a growing problem because of their PC, their censoring, their, mass surveillance and information gathering, operation they got going on. And that Facebook actually fell in, I have this article here from the New York Post. Mark Zuckerberg is pissing off a lot of people. And it goes in to talk about, how they hit, let me see what. Says, Facebook has been a boon for shareholders. Financial news blog 24/7 Wall Street noted as it published its anonymous list. However, not everyone is pleased with the social media platform. Facebook's name ended up in sixth place behind Comcast, Bank of America, Mylan, McDonald's, and Wells Fargo, trailing Facebook on the miserable list of 12 were the slightly less hated Spirit Airlines, Dish Network, Sears, Sprint, Walmart, and Charter Communications. In recent years, Facebook has drawn significant criticism over its privacy policies and mass data collection of its users, 24/7 Wall Street said. And according to Bloomberg, Facebook fight against fake news leads to deeper media ties. Facebook Inc., struggling with its growing role as a distributor of news, is embarking on a project that includes stronger partnerships with media companies, greater support for local news, and better efforts to educate users to avoid hoaxes. The company's journalism project follows a year of debate over Facebook's role in the media inside the company and externally, during which it faced questions over whether the social network is biased in the way it presents news to users and whether it propagates false information. Members of the media will be updated on the efforts, which include training for journalists and ways to promote news literacy among users on a new Facebook journalism project page. We know that our community values sharing and discussing ideas and news, and as a part of our service, we care a great deal about making sure that a healthy news ecosystem and journalism can thrive, the company said in a blog post. I don't think this is going to help their 2017 out, because part of it is the censorship that the other article didn't point out. Well, just because that article didn't point it out, that's still part of the problem. So you think, well, we'll basically be the judge of real journalism. Well, Facebook, you're biased. It's been, shown a biasy on Facebook over and over and over. You might not admit to it. You might try to say you're always trying to prevent that, but it's still there. Okay. We're going to move on here. Give me a second. Now, people that know me, I moved out of the more populated city. I moved out in the boondocks because there's a city mentality, and I just don't agree with that here in Indiana, if you are in the majority of Indiana, people are more laid back. It tends to be more right-leaning, but that's not completely true, because a lot of libertarian people here don't feel the party's anywhere strong enough or good enough candidates in the Libertarian Party. So most libertarian thinking people just are trying to keep the left out because they see them as the most harmful to their rights. So they vote Republican, but a lot of conservative and libertarian, people throughout most of Indiana, but like Indianapolis and other pockets here in Indiana, the major cities are Democrat. Extremely high taxes, high crime rate, and it's a constant battle. One city here in Indiana decided to spend a whole bunch of money to build roundabouts. Well, after all these roundabouts are put in, and these things called converging diamonds, um, believe me, all this stuff is not beneficial. If anything, it causes a lot of people flipping out. Definitely people from out of town, not knowing what the hell to do. So they spend all this money, and then, well, the roads are still kind of crap. But you got all these, new roundabouts and converging diamonds. They decided to add a city wheel tax. They already had, your state, your county. Well, now they were like, well, the roads are so bad. We need to put this wheel tax on. So now everybody in that city, has to pay even more. And then Indiana's talking about raising, wheel tax and gas tax here in Indiana. So I don't think that city expected that from Indiana. So now the people in that city will be hit 3 times, where people outside that city got hit twice from the state, where now those people even get another one on top of it. And I called them out multiple times, like, they're building roundabouts. Why are they building roundabouts when the roads are crap? I hope they got money set aside for the roads. And people just kind of like looked at me like, huh? Of course they're going to fix the roads. They always fix the roads. Well, no, there's some few areas where they're trying to get these, areas bought up and shops to, move in. So they keep repaving that same area over and over every other year, while other roads just deteriorate. I called it out, and I'm like, yeah, they're probably going to try to raise some type of tax for to pay for the roads now, because they spent all their money on these roundabouts. Sure enough, they talk about the wheel tax. Exactly why I moved where I am. I always lived on the edge of the city, not the suburbs. Kind of, it was a mix between like suburban country. I was out in the country, but not a farm. I was in a house on an acre, a lot of my childhood, but it was one of those things that I always had one foot in the city and one foot in the country, and spent a lot of time both. Um, I'm an outdoors person. I love camping, hunting, fishing. So, there's things about the city I do like, but what you tend to find when you have a lot of these big cities is they're Democrat ran, and any big companies you see building a store, anything entertainment related when it comes to, any sports, and convention centers, you see all this partially paid for with taxpayer money. We've even seen condos being, tax, payer subsidized. And it's funny because I live on a lake now. If I had this same property not on a lake, I would be looking at about 4 times the property tax to live in the city where there's higher crime and kind of a bad vibe. If I was to have something like this on a lake, which there's not a lot of lakes there in the city or even in that county, but even if it was in that county, if I had something like this, you could expect probably 6 to 7 times on property tax. That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. To pay for all of this useless things. And it's funny because they built a baseball stadium downtown. Well, they built one that was on the county's property years back, and when they first built that, it boomed for a good, I would say 3 to 5 years. It really kind of did good and just kept tapering off. Then they build this one downtown. It booms, and it's starting to already get to that point where it's starting to level out and maybe taper off a little bit with people going down there to go to a baseball game. It gets to a point that you have to look at a lot of the logic that goes behind this. You got to understand, and that's what really got to me. I go, man, I wouldn't want to live in the city and pay higher property tax. And one guy looked at me. He goes, "What do you mean? You live on the lake. You'd pay a lot less if you lived here in the city. Plus, you'd be closer to work." And I go, no, I wouldn't. And they go, "Well, what do you pay?" And I go, "Better question." I said, what do you think you pay on property tax?" And he told me. And I was like, "Oh, that's what you pay on property tax?" Asked him how big of a property he had. And he had probably not quite half or double the property I have. And I said, "And you realize I pay about 4 times less a year than what you pay." And he couldn't believe it. After that, he's like, "Man, once I get to a point on this house, I'm going to try to convince my wife to move." Yeah, I don't blame you. Not saying that living this way don't have its flaws. Not exactly the best place to shop, but now you got the internet, and then it's really not that far to drive. All highway driving, and we're in Indiana, not Los Angeles or New York, so highway driving is pretty decent. Now, there was a Ron Paul Liberty Report. I'm not going to play it, but I do want people to go check it out. It was one put out today. the truth about crime in the inner cities. And it's a real interesting clip. I definitely urge people to go check it out. Now we are coming up on the last half hour. Tonight kind of went pretty fast, at least for me. Now, if I can find the clip I was going to play here. It's a short clip if I don't find it here. Sorry, guys. I don't know what's going on here. I had another We Are Change clip here. And I just had to restart my browser because it is flipping out. Kept hitting refresh, half of the page would load, the other half wouldn't, and then vice versa next time. Okay, I wanted to play this since, Obama's leaving office. We Are Change put this out. 5 things Obama wants you to forget about his presidency. And, they're going to they've already been starting it, trying to paint him as this, great president. He was so flawless. The history books are going to love him. He did all this great stuff. And, most of us are like, what are you talking about? People that really don't even have a political ideology or anything that I know, that don't really even get into politics. We're kind of happy that Obama is, first black president, whatever. But then, they definitely don't look at him or any other government official as anybody cool or, beneficial for their life. They don't really like government too much. They just see it as, whatever. This clip is pretty good here. Let's go ahead and cue it up if it'll cue up. Here we go.
That you're
Sorry, we'll get rid of this ad here.
Shortly, U.S. President Barack Obama will give his farewell speech from Chicago, where, of course, he will pat himself on the back, tout his legacy, and talk about all of his accomplishments as the U.S. mainstream media props him up and will most likely call him the best president ever. But in this video, I wanted to tell you the 5 things that Barack Obama does not want you to know that he did as president of the United States. Number 1, the destruction of Libya, which even the BBC and the Atlantic had to call the worst mistake that President Barack Obama has committed. But it gets more sinister than just a mistake. This was not a well-meaning intervention that ended in failure. As we know, Barack Obama came on the national stage, convinced the American people and their representatives that we needed to get involved in Libya's civil conflict for humanitarian purposes to help the people of Libya. And that was an absolute lie from the emails that were released this year. And it came out that the United States intervened in Libya to get rid of their leader, Muammar Gaddafi, who was creating a gold-backed currency, an African Union currency that would threaten the U.S. dollar. And now, because of this, Libya is a failed state, filled with sectarian violence, a hotbed for radical Islamic terrorists, where genocide, human rights violations, rapes, crimes, racist bigotry policies are pushed against the people there who are suffering to this day right now in a destroyed state. And when their goal was met and their leader, Muammar Gaddafi, was assassinated with the help of U.S. and NATO bombing campaigns with rebel groups that they financed that turned out to be radical Islamic terrorists. Videos surfaced of their leader being tortured, being beaten, having a knife stuck up his, I won't even mention where. When that video came out, then Secretary of State under Barack Obama said this.
We saw, he died.
Thank God she didn't become president. Number 2, Barack Obama not only made it legal, but carried out a program that assassinated U.S. citizens with drones without the due process of law, without a judge, without a jury, without a trial. He personally had a kill list, which, of course, they cited as a deposition matrix, but he made it legal for the U.S. president to assassinate any American citizens he wants without the due process of law. And now Donald Trump will have that power because of him. Now, it's still unknown how many American citizens Barack Obama personally assassinated on his own kill list, since the program is shrouded in mystery. But we know one of the victims was a 16-year-old American citizen from Colorado. The administration was very tight-lipped about this program, and at that moment didn't say anything about it until me and my reporter were actually able to get a comment from Robert Gibbs, Barack Obama's spokesperson on the matter, who said,
and others in this country. And,
that's an American citizen that's being targeted without due process of law, without trial, and he's underage, he's a minor.
I would suggest that you should have a far more responsible father if they're truly concerned about the well-being of their children.
Number 3, after destroying Libya, President Barack Obama set his sights on Syria, where President Bashar al-Assad threatened the U.S. petrodollar and didn't agree on pipelines from Saudi Arabia bypassing Russia. And in 2013, he used the same lines, saying that we need to help this humanitarian crisis inside of Syria, and bomb the crap out of them until the American people said, wait, no. And then Russia stepped in and sent in their aircraft carriers in between U.S. battleships and said that they would defend Syria if the United States would attack it. The United States backed off, but then Barack Obama secretly authorized a program supporting Syrian rebels with Saudi Arabia, with Turkey, with Israel. They supported Syrian Sunni rebel groups that have soon turned out to be radical Islamic terrorists and ISIS. And now we have another failed state balkanized in the Middle East with Syria. Number 4, he spread a culture of fear and paranoia, not only expanding the surveillance state, but declaring a war on journalists and whistleblowers. And as president of the United States, he has used the Espionage Act more than all the other presidents combined to persecute journalists and whistleblowers, creating a culture of fear, which led to people inside of the government not going to their chain of command in order to fiction within the government, creating people like Edward Snowden, who had to flee and worry about persecution if he would have whistleblowed on the illegal things the government was doing that was wrong, and exposed the very fact how the NSA surveillance community was spying on all of the American citizens, how government agents were using this power to spy on their ex-girlfriends, how agents were intercepting sex and using them for their own pleasure and amusement. And now he gives this gift to Donald Trump with a president of persecuting and cracking down on journalists and their sources, which leads to the 5th thing that U.S. President Barack Obama wants you to forget about his presidency, and that is his war on truth. Under the 2012 NDAA, he repealed a law banning U.S. propaganda on its own citizens and codified and made it legal for the U.S. government to lie to its own people, legalizing propaganda usage by the government, allowing them to lie to you. And under this year's NDAA, he signed an NDAA provision which many people say will end free speech. And under this law, they will create a government center that will coordinate efforts on the federal government to recognize, understand, expose, and counter foreign state and non-state, right here, propaganda and disinformation efforts aimed at undermining United States national security interests. Really? President Barack Obama won a Nobel Peace Prize. He came into power under the banner of hope and change. Meanwhile, he has bombed 7 countries underneath his presidency. He was at war every single day of his administration. Just in 2016 alone, the United States has dropped 26,171 bombs all over the freaking world. His speech will not mention this. The mainstream media will cover up these important facts. It is up to you to share this information, to share the true legacy of President Barack Obama? Let me know in the comment section below. What do you think are some of the things that he wants you to forget about his legacy, his supposed achievements, in the comment section below. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. We're going to have a subscribe link right here that you could click in the video, related video right here, and also a Patreon link where you could support real free speech, real independent right here that you could click in the video and make us beholden to you because we are financed by you. See you back here in 8 years when we talk about Donald Trump. Thank you again so much for watching. Subscribe, click that bell button, and stay tuned for a lot more important information on this independent news channel.
We Are Change again. We Are Change.org. We Are Change on YouTube. Check them out. Subscribe. Now that's if Donald Trump makes it to 8 years. We'll see. But how many mainstream media is pointing out, all the things that have gone wrong? Health prices have skyrocketed. No, they want to talk about, the Republicans want to repeal something that's making everybody's health insurance go crazy, paying 4 times as much as they would have. Oh, yeah, and they're forced to do it. So, it becomes a true propaganda, which he legalized, and it's like they're capitalizing on it. And we have to counteract this, and part of it is to continue to stay current with what the youth is really in touch with, different social media outlets. Being a influential person to the youth is one way of doing it. I know Luke and We Are Change has been a really good outlet to get people inspired to do citizen journalism, or even try to get into some bigger journalism outfits, but at the same time reporting on what they're actually seeing and not becoming a propaganda mouthpiece. And we need more ways to get the youth inspired into true freedom, true liberty, what that actually means, and why the Republicans and especially the Democrats are leading us far away from that. And as Ron Paul continues to age, he might not be at this time like he was back in 06, 07, and 08, even 012. He's not looked at by the youth the way they were back then. 10 years ago, when the real emergence of a push to go, hey, we need someone like Ron Paul. Ron Paul, in Congress at that time, and how long he had been in Congress, and, stay true to, his principles and values. And it's something that, whether you personally live your life, more liberal or conservative or whatever you want to, label yourself as, he represented something that said, yes, you can live that lifestyle. This is the goal, is that people of all different types of personal ways of living can live free without government intrusion. And his anti-war got a lot of people on the left interested. We're going to need that type of figure again. Will Rand Paul become that? I think Rand Paul will have to be like his father and be in Congress for a while. But I do know that some people really already have started looking into Rand Paul because he's standing against Republicans and Democrats. He's standing more firm with, the side of freedom than any, I think, other candidates. Some people can argue Ted Cruz. I wouldn't. But Liberty Movement needs someone that can bring people together, because what we're seeing in society shows that breakdown of that once large and diverse community that gathered together, not caring about the differences behind Ron Paul. Well, we're so focused on our differences that it's now allowing government to go into hyperdrive. And a lot of people that supported Trump may have to hold his feet to the fire if he goes off track into authoritarian territory. We'll see. We will have to see. Now, if I can get this clip loaded, it was only a couple-minute clip. I don't know if I'll be able to. It's already getting a little late here. Yeah, about 15 minutes. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, let's go ahead and get it. It's going. This is from Reason TV, and this one's 5 Republicans liberals may grow to love in the Trump era. And, like I said, you have to have people that stand with principles and values, and, that's what a lot of people respect about Ron Paul, and we'll see if we can find that here come the future. Justin Amash never endorsed Trump, criticizes the president-elect on almost daily basis. Senator Rand Paul vows to obstruct any Trump attempts to appoint a warmonger. Evan McMullen calls for a new conservatism that embraces equality. George Will, the country's most syndicated columnist, left the Republican Party over Trump. Anthony Scalia, protected flag burning, defended against unreasonable search and seizure. While Democrats may never love these 5 personalities, they will certainly come to appreciate their roadblocks each. I can't read all that fast. Check out that at Reason TV on YouTube. Good channel to subscribe to. Now, it's going to be interesting when it comes to Supreme Court. Of course, many people know, hey, I would like Andrew Napolitano, but I don't know if that would happen. We'll see what the Supreme Court's going to look like. I've always said this, and I stay firm to it, that if you're going to elect people, you got to look at your local level and get the most libertarian type people in there. If we can get our local communities in order, then when we look at the federal government, we can basically run the show. But as long as our local communities are as corrupt as they are, not all, but a lot of, definitely, if you're in a bigger city, it's completely corrupted. Just go ahead and point that out. That's how it gets so big, is through corruption. We've seen that over and over. Now, again, these are usually pockets within a state. Now, these pockets tend to be the most, populated, because kind of like what the Democrats have been trying to do with the immigration policy is, we'll bring in a whole bunch of immigrants, give them free stuff, and they'll vote for us. Well, that they basically do the same in the city. That the city always has all this free stuff they do for the community, and well, it's not free. It comes out of someone's pocket, probably yours already. And if you would have had that money, you might have done something more productive with it. But since you don't have that money to do anything else, you might as well go to this free event that the city's putting on. Well, guess what? You're going to something you paid for. Now, if we can get the rest of the rural and smaller communities in line, we can probably deal with the corrupt pockets. And I think with this past election, I think it's pointed out how important having a community that backs people and the ideas of freedom become when you start seeing the choices of Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders or Bush, another Bush. You want another Clinton, another Bush. I say two things. You would have never been able to run someone like Trump without there being a Hillary, and without there being Obama in the White House. Those two things made Trump's nomination and election possible. If the left wants to complain about Trump getting into power, blame yourself for pushing too hard, pushing too far, and disregarding the rest of America. Because when you look at the power of the Democratic Party, it lies in a few coastal states for the most part. While you have the rest of the United States, even if it might not be as populated, because, well, looks like the rest of the United States doesn't want to shove millions of people in a small area that half of it's a ghetto, while the rich sit on top of a hill or a tower. So again, we have to focus a lot of energy, I think, on our communities and our local level. And like I said before, your local sheriff, big deal. If you don't have someone good running, try to find someone that would be willing to run. Now, my new year has kind of started off a little rough. There was a family friend that passed away, car trouble, just a little bit of a rough year. So when I look at the rest of the year, I go, you know what? It's going to get better from here. So hopefully, maybe the liberty movement, the freedom movement, the idea of freedom, the idea of liberty, maybe this year is a year that it gets a new start, because it radically needs a new start. And I think it's really up to all the people that understand what freedom and liberty are, for them to hold true to that. And even if you voted for Trump, call him out on everything that he does to abridge people's freedoms, rights. You know, I'm not, with a lot of these, groups that are associated with the left. I'm not with, forcing companies to do something, a baker shouldn't have to bake something and go attend a event that goes against something he believes in and holds that dear. I'm not for that, but I'm also not for restricting the freedoms of those people. Even if they were willing to restrict mine, I'm not going to compound it by restricting theirs, because then you play into that game where we've been on this path for way too long now. Each side battling the other to restrict their freedom, to the point that all of our freedoms have been restricted. And the generations that are growing up, even my generation, don't truly know freedom, because we've never grown up in a free world. And, you can say that for the past, for different races and genders and, class status. But when we better those relations and we better those equality or inequalities, and we make them equal, in that process, we can't take away freedom, because then what, if you believe you're being freed, what are you being free to? A bigger cage? Or do you want to be free to a free world? And that's what we should be focusing on. I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. I enjoyed this broadcast. And, don't forget to support networks like UCY. If you go to ucy.tv, scroll down to the bottom, you'll see an Amazon button. If you click that Amazon button, you can shop Amazon through ucy.tv. Same great prices, same great shipping rate. It takes you to Amazon's website itself. It's not actually through UCY's website, so you could feel secure. Again, same great prices, same great shipping rates, and at the same time, by UCY partnering with Amazon, we get a little kickback for each purchase, and that helps cover operating costs on the network's end. And, there's some great prepping gear you can get from Amazon for really good prices. So go check them out. And don't forget to go to antityrannynews.com/mypatriot. That takes you to My Patriot Supply, another great prepping website. And, you know, my favorite product from them is their non-GMO seed vaults. They got herbs, the Christ